Hey, welcome back. All right, so Ophiuchus, let's go ahead and take a little peek. Ophiuchus, I'm glad we were able to get you guys two videos this week. Also, all the zodiacs have gotten theirs. You guys are my last to get a second video for this week. So this is going to be the retrograde message. So if we look at the retrograde as, well, kind of like as what it is, which is that Mercury laps us. It goes faster in its orbit than Earth does. So it looks like it goes in reverse, the same way watching hands on a clock every time it passes 12. At some point, it almost looks like it's going backwards, but it's not. It always denotes, passage of time, right? Because Mercury's come around, about 4-ish months, well, 3.5, 4 months to come full circle. So we know that we got a second chance. We're a little older, a little wiser. Some time has passed. So we got chances to look at things through a different lens. And so what is it that might be coming back from a different lens, or how might we see something differently now? What is it that might be popping up? We've got a 6 of Pentacles in the reverse. This actually looks like, instead of looking at something and saying, oh, you know what, this is something to give to, it kind of looks like Ophiuchus is going to be remembering a situation that they may have walked away from for very valid reasons. They might be reflecting and saying, you know what, man, my life's so much better ever since I stopped going to the book club once a month. Honestly, I did not even realize how much work that was. When I would host, or maybe it was always being hosted at my house somehow because I had the bigger house, it was so much extra work. I had to make sure the house was clean, spotless. I had to make sure that, whatever the kids were out of the house, I had to make sure that there was enough parking. I had to make sure that, everything would be just perfect. I had to make sure that there were snackies and water and ice. And God, it was a lot of work. And I'm glad I'm not doing that anymore. Just for example, I'm using something that's not like very emotionally charged, but something where it's like that was a super big imbalance for me because it was a lot to do. And the joy that I received out of it was not equal to the amount of effort. And so I'm glad I don't do it anymore. So this is an interesting observation because it's like, actually, I feel so much better that I did close a chapter and I don't feel guilty about it one little bit. That's awesome to not feel any guilt about whatever this was. It was not fair. It was not balanced. And instead of Ophiuchus like reconsidering and being like, man, I guess I should have handled that different, Ophiuchus is like, I should have handled that this way a long time ago. We have the Magician. I got all my free time now. I'm ready to manifest other stuff. Hi, Des. Thank you for being here. This really looks awesome for Ophiuchus. This looks like Ophiuchus is full steam ahead. What I want to do is build something fabulous. What I really want to do is, spend my precious energy to create. And so reflecting on a situation that used to drain us and not feel guilty about letting that situation go, and instead feeling excited about where we are now and what we can do with our future and all of our energy and resources. I just feel like Ophiuchus is in like a really good place. Now, this could be about an Ophiuchus who broke off a relationship and they're like, yep, I did the right thing. Queen of Swords, as I say that, this is the sword that we use to cut through things. This is, I put up boundaries, and you know what? My life is better for it. I kind of think that oftentimes, although it can be very uncomfortable to have to put up boundaries or to have to, erect boundaries that we should have had right at the beginning, but didn't realize we would need, I think putting up boundaries, if we're feeling trespassed upon, it's necessary. And of course, we shouldn't feel guilty for having some kind of, comfort zone or rules and regulations about how we want our own life to go, or who we let in, or who gets to take our energy. So I love the fact that Ophiuchus is like, damn, I'm going to always make sure that I start with boundaries from here on out because it makes my life better. If I protect my time, if I don't allow myself to say yes to things I actually meant no to, that is what I have changed in my life. And my life is simpler. I announce right out of the gate, I will do this, I won't do that. If this is about getting into a new partnership, new relationship, whether that's a business negotiation, and all of this, let's say all of this was about business. Let's say Ophiuchus is a stellar housekeeper, but when they would go and take on a job, somehow people would start to ask them to do things that were not part of, what the plan was. It's like, here's these different packages. If you want me to clean, the grout in your bathtub and between the tiles, of your countertops with a toothbrush, that's considered a deep clean, which comes with a whole different price tag. What you paid for was the general tidying up, dusting, not the, I'm using heavy chemicals and, killing mold and blah, blah, blah. You went for the superficial clean, not the deep. So if you want to change that, first I have to decide if I want to do it, but you can't just tack on stuff and expect me to do it. And if it wasn't spelled out perfectly, I could see that now it is. Ophiuchus probably learned a lesson where it's like, I only take the jobs that I want. I lay it out how it has to be. I let people know I will do this, this, and this. Nope, don't even ask. I won't do that other service. You need to hire a, whatever. For grout cleaning, you hire somebody else. That's not my cleaning, forte that I'm bringing to the table. It feels like Ophiuchus has learned how to set up expectations right out of the gate, and that is helping them immensely. And if that's what they are reflecting on during this retrograde, it's how great it is when you actually have boundaries, and how much more you can manifest when you know very clearly what you will and won't give, and what your price is, and what your I feel like this is true even in a relationship. Know what the deal breakers are, know what the expectations are, and I just kind of think that whether this is business or a relationship, you have a Two of Pentacles. This does not mean that Ophiuchus won't be fair and negotiate. It's not like my way or the highway, but there are certain deal breakers. And I kind of think that Ophiuchus is about to begin a new relationship with this Two of Pentacles. And they are like reflecting and saying, okay, let me remember the lessons I've already learned. Let me remember I'm trying to manifest an amazing outcome for myself. So let me set it up with realistic expectations for me and for them. And then I can come to the table with a negotiation tactic that is authentic. Page of Wands, Knight of Swords. I definitely feel like this is a relationship that could start pretty fast. Like it could go from, I'm attracted to this person, they're attracted to me. We might go from friends to obviously being attracted to each other pretty swiftly. But there is definitely something about, if there's kids involved, or if there's other family members involved, or whatever, it's like, so here's the whole package deal, and here's how this is going to go. I just think that almost immediately, instead of getting into a hot-blooded romance with someone and then trying to backtrack and be like, oh, okay, so you want a hot-blooded romance with me, but you have kids that are grown and you don't really want to introduce them to somebody, so you want to keep me a secret and just have like a, you want to date me and you live in another state. You have no intention of like going long distance, long term with me, then I'm not interested. Or maybe that's Ophiuchus saying, I want them to know I'm not introducing anybody to my kids, my family. I want a relationship with someone, but it'll have to be on my terms. So I want to make sure that I let them know that right out of the gate, so feelings don't get hurt. There is something here about these youths versus, it says autumn of youth. It could have something to do with like, I'm going to create the life that I want. It has to be my comfort zone. And not everyone's going to agree with my comfort zone. Not everybody's going to be okay with the fact that maybe I don't want to introduce them to my kids, like at all. And, whatever it may be. Again, wherever someone's comfort zone is, you have a right to have your comfort zones. But if you don't tell somebody what the expectation is, then you could hurt their feelings. And I really think this is Ophiuchus saying, I have learned how not to get my own feelings bent, nor other people's, because I'm upfront right at the beginning what this is and what this isn't. Two of Swords. I do keep thinking that Ophiuchus has some expectations that there will be boundaries not crossed, and there will be things that they don't really want in their life. I mean, heck, this could be, I want to date somebody, but I don't want them to, drink too much. That's just not something I'm comfortable with for my own set of reasons. I'm not trying to control you. I'm just saying I would be better off. I'm just using an example right now. I would prefer somebody who's put that behind them. If you drank a lot when you were younger, you partied, that's fine. But I'm at an age bracket where I don't really think that's super fun. And it costs a lot of money. So if you're still spending a ton of money and you can't remember where you were over the weekend by the time Monday rolls around, and, sometimes you're not showing up to work because you got sloshed, I'm probably not interested. There are some things that is not just going to be okay with me. It keeps feeling more like the reason Ophiuchus has very specific strata of comfort zones is because they have thought this out, and what they're looking for is something much more mature, and they want their own life to blossom. Yeah, Ace of Swords. Ophiuchus is at that point in their life where they're like, I can do without anybody if I don't find the somebody that really matches my lifestyle choices and what I'm trying to create. Now, that is not Ophiuchus being rude or mean or demanding. This is them totally willing to go it alone. That's how you know they're not being demanding. It's like, I don't mean you have to meet my standards. I just mean I do have standards that I'm not going to bend. So let's be clear. I don't mean you have to do this for me. I just mean this is what I would need for this to click and work in my own life. Otherwise, it's totally fine. Like I can go solo. It's basically saying you cannot have your cake and eat it too if I'm in your life, because I also have things that I want. So definitely willing to negotiate, definitely willing to be very straightforward about what is a no-go zone. I would just say this is somebody who actually has been around the block a time or two, has had their time wasted, has had their resources taken, and has settled for things that were not okay with them in the past, and they swore they'll never do it again. I won't do that to me again, because my life is, I have too much to look forward to, and I can't let anybody like suck away my time, and I don't end up with the relationship or the lifestyle that I want, but I'm supposed to put up with all the shit that they want to do. No. I would say that's more the vibe I get off of this. This is not a hard person to get along with. Ophiuchus is simply saying, my life is really important, and I've had some of my life and my precious energy, stolen away in the past because I didn't value my own, future enough. And so now I really do. I just think I maybe haven't said this very gracefully, but I think this is a very graceful Ophiuchus. And I think that they have genuinely learned. And I kind of think that this is a very sweet person who has learned the hard way. I have to protect my energy more. Otherwise, I will run the risk of losing, a decade of my energy living somebody else's dream or kowtowing to their expectations instead of any of my own. So I kind of think that it's like the pendulum is swung the other direction, but if we don't have, Ophiuchus saying, and now it's all my way or the highway, we don't see that. We just see Ophiuchus like having learned to advocate for themselves. This might be one of the first times, though, that they've really been test running or test driving, putting this into play, putting their own expectations front and center, and actually kind of like letting somebody know, hey, before we begin anything, let me just kind of fill you in a little bit on, here's some non-negotiables for me. It's okay if you don't want to be on board with that. That's all right. But this is who I am. Yeah. 3 of Swords, 10 of Pentacles, Queen of Wands. I'm telling you, I think that this is a very attractive Ophiuchus. And I think that what they have learned is, I think that they've learned just how sexy they are on one hand, but they've also learned that they attract sometimes people that are energy vampires. And this time around, they want someone who, yeah, you can still be attracted to me. You can still think I'm sexy, but I'm more than that, right? I'm not here to adorn your arm. That I'm here to be like somebody that has my own thoughts and feelings, and that, we share decision making with. It's got to be the two of us. You got to care about who I am and what I want. And I think that's a hard thing to have to like vocalize, but I think that's what happened for this Ophiuchus is I'm guessing that they had somebody who was like, oh, you're really attractive, you're really beautiful, I want you for myself, and now you are this beautiful piece of like adornment in my life, but not like you're a real person that I consider and get to know and ask. It could have been somebody who like wanted to take care of Ophiuchus, but simultaneously not really, that they decided what was good for Ophiuchus, not actually make sure Ophiuchus liked what the scenario was. And maybe they thought that was being nice, but I don't think Ophiuchus thought that was nice. That's a big lesson in like saying, I'm realizing somebody needs to make sure that I mean, yeah, I'd love them to love that I'm attractive or find me attractive, but not if that's the only thing you think of me. You got to care about me too. What do I want? Who am I? Otherwise, you're just going to drain me, and because I'm going to be your adornment. I'm nobody's feather boa. Like that's the best way I could say that. All right, I'm going to leave that there. I think this has a lot of promise for this next coming relationship that Ophiuchus seems to be like navigating the waters of, because they've figured out what they want and what they don't want and what they won't have again. I kind of think this is Ophiuchus like really presenting themselves the way they want to be treated. That sounds kind of really great. You guys, thanks for being here. Just me. Hi, honey. Rach is magic. So nice to see you. And Des, you were first in the house. Thanks again. It is my pleasure, you guys. Really good to see everybody. All right. I will see you guys. We're going to do a single storyline before we pop over to Tarot Dog. So if you guys are up late tonight, then I'll see you in the single storyline. And if you're up really late, I'll see you over on Tarot Dog. All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks for giving it a thumbs up and subscribing.